Welcome to part 11 of Sustainable Finance. My name is Gregor Weiss, and I am a professor of finance here at Leipzig University. This chapter zooms all the way out. So far, we've looked at individual firms, funds, and instruments. Now we ask the biggest question of all. Is climate change a threat to the stability of the entire financial system? Could it trigger the next great financial crisis? And if so, what can central banks and supervisors, the guardians of financial stability, actually do about it? This is where climate stops being an ethical or an investment question and becomes a core concern of the people who keep the whole system from falling over. It's a genuinely gripping topic and one that's become intensely political. To place us, this is topic 11 of 12, the penultimate chapter, and in many ways the capstone of the risk story we've been building. Every risk we've met, stranded assets, catastrophe losses, the carbon bubble, transition shocks, reappears here, but now viewed through the eyes of a financial stability supervisor, asking whether these risks, added together, could bring down banks, insurers, and markets at once. After this, we finish with microfinance and financial inclusion. Here's what you should take away. First, understand why climate change is a financial stability risk, not only an ethical issue. Second, know how supervisors try to measure it through scenario analysis and climate stress tests. Third, map the prudential and disclosure architecture that's been built. The Basel rules, the European Central Bank, the global disclosure standards from the ISSB, and the European Union's Taxonomy and Reporting Directive, the CSRD. And fourth, grasp the live, unresolved debates. Whether capital charges should reflect climate, how far central banks should go, and the growing split between Europe and the United States. It's a chapter as much about politics and institutions as about finance. 3 questions guide us. First, is climate change genuinely a threat to financial stability? Second, can regulators actually measure and manage that risk? And third, the most politically charged of all, how far should central banks and supervisors go on climate? Keep that third one especially in mind, because it has no settled answer, and where you come down on it increasingly depends on which side of the Atlantic you sit. Let's begin with part A, establishing that climate really is a financial stability risk. This isn't obvious. For a long time, climate was seen purely as an environmental or ethical matter, nothing to do with the plumbing of finance. So the first job is to show precisely how a warming planet can threaten the stability of banks and markets. And it starts with a single, brilliant idea from a central banker. That idea is the tragedy of the horizon, coined by Carney, then governor of the Bank of England, in a landmark 2015 speech. His insight was deceptively simple but profound. The catastrophic impacts of climate change will be felt beyond the horizon of the actors who could prevent them, beyond the horizon of the business cycle, of the political cycle, and even of the central bank credit cycle. In plain terms, by the time climate change becomes a clear and present danger to financial stability, it will already be too late to avoid it. Think about why that's such a trap. A typical business plans a few years ahead, a politician to the next election, a central banker over a credit cycle of a few years. But the worst climate damage lands decades out. So nobody whose job it is to safeguard stability has, on their normal horizon, any reason to act until the damage is locked in. Carney's genius was to flip this into a mandate. Precisely because the market and the political system are structurally short-sighted about climate, supervisors, who are supposed to safeguard long-run stability, must act on risks that materialize outside the usual horizon. In one speech, he moved climate from an ethical question onto the desk of every central bank in the world. It's arguably the single most influential idea in this entire field. So concretely, how does a climate shock actually reach the financial system? Through 4 familiar channels of risk, and it helps to see them all at once. First, it helps to see them all at once. First, credit risk. As climate change or climate policy impairs borrowers' assets and cash flows, a flooded factory, a stranded coal mine, those borrowers default and banks take loan losses. Second, market risk. The sudden repricing of stranded or carbon-intensive assets, the carbon bubble scenario, hits the value of securities that banks and investors hold. Third, underwriting risk. Insurers face larger and crucially correlated catastrophe claims, exactly as we saw in Part 7. And fourth, operational and liability risk. Physical disasters disrupt firms' own operations, and a rising tide of climate litigation creates legal liabilities. Notice that climate doesn't create some exotic new type of risk that the system has never seen. Instead, it acts as a driver of all the existing risks that supervisors already understand: credit, market, underwriting, operational. That framing is enormously important because it means supervisors can fold climate into their existing toolkit rather than starting from scratch. Climate is a new source of old risks, but there's something about climate risk that does make it genuinely new and frightening, and it's captured in a wonderful phrase from the Bank for International Settlements, the Green Swan, from a 2020 book by Bolton and co-authors. You'll know the black swan, a rare, unpredictable, high-impact event. A green swan is stranger and, in a way, worse. Unlike a black swan, we are certain a climate crisis of some kind will happen. The physics guarantees it, but it's radically uncertain in its timing and its form. We don't know when, where, or exactly how it will strike the financial system. And it's potentially catastrophic and even civilization threatening. Here's the deep problem this poses for supervisors, and it's a technical one with huge consequences. Normal financial risk models are backward-looking. They estimate risk from historical data, from what has happened before. But climate change is unprecedented. The past is no guide to a future with a transformed climate, so our standard risk models simply cannot capture it, which is a fundamental problem for stress testing, as we'll see. The green swan concept justifies precautionary action despite deep uncertainty, because you cannot model it away, and because it's certain to come and potentially catastrophic. Waiting for proof is not an option. You must act under uncertainty. Finally, let's see how individual firm risks become a systemic threat to the whole system, because that's the leap that turns climate from a business problem into a financial stability problem. The key study here is by Battiston and co-authors in 2017, one of the first to run a climate stress test of the financial system. Their crucial insight is about interconnection. A transition shock, say a sudden tightening of climate policy, doesn't just hit one firm in isolation. It cascades through interlinked balance sheets. Picture the chain. Stranded assets lose value, forcing institutions to sell. Fire sales. Those fire sales push prices down further, causing mark-to-market losses at everyone else holding similar assets. And those losses spread, contagion, through the web of financial connections. And there's an amplifier that makes climate especially dangerous systemically: common exposures. Because so many institutions hold the same kinds of assets, fossil fuel investments, real estate in exposed areas, they don't fail independently, one unlucky bank at a time. They fail together, all at once, hit by the same shock. And that simultaneity is the very definition of a systemic crisis. So individually, small manageable climate risks can, through interconnection and common exposure, add up to something that threatens the entire system. That's the intellectual foundation for everything supervisors are now trying to do. Let's recap. Climate is a financial stability risk, not just an ethical one. Carney's Tragedy of the Horizon showed why supervisors must act on risks beyond the normal horizon. Climate reaches the system as a driver of familiar risks: credit, market, underwriting, operational. But the green swan makes it uniquely hard, being certain yet unmodelable, which justifies precaution. And through fire sales, contagion, and common exposures, small firm-level risks can become systemic, as Battiston's climate stress test showed. In the next video, we look at how supervisors actually try to measure this through the NGFS scenarios and climate stress tests. See you there.